What is up, everyone? Welcome to the DNVR Rockies Podcast, brought to you by Bet365. Use code DNVR365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary with Bet365. What's up, everyone? Christian Saez, joined by Big Drive Spence in the house. We've got a pretty cool show today because we had a, I would argue, historic moment in Rockies franchise history. Brenton Doyle getting named the National League Player of the Month, only the 12th Rocky in franchise history to get Player of the Month. And I would argue that was probably the most deserved honors that he could get, given the month of July that he had. Dude has been absolutely crushing it.
It's unbelievable. Well, and the crazy thing is he obviously crushes it at the plate, and he's hitting home run after home run. It seemed like the easiest bet of the day, just Brenton Doyle home run. But then he plays otherworldly defense. And yes, it was in August, but he robbed a home run in San Diego. Like, the fact that he not only does what he does at the plate and had that month of July at the plate, but then turning around and in the field just being, I'm going to say, the best center fielder in baseball defensively.
That's fair.
It was a no-doubter. And I looked at right before they gave it to him, or before they were deciding who it was, there was a lot of good numbers out there. He led an OPS of like the four guys that they kind of pinpointed, but I think when you come to the defense and the Gold Glove level plays, and he'll probably win another Gold Glove, to be honest, the arm, everything else, it was a no-brainer for me, at least. Obviously, I'm a little biased.
Yeah, I'm sure we're a little biased, but I think it's fair. And I didn't see anyone like really disputing that in the national media world either. I think, when you've got a guy who throughout the 25 games in the month of July, he had a .333 batting average, 800 slugging, over 1.19 OPS, 11 home runs. I mean, like, how do you not give someone like that? Unless someone is just like having a Shohei Ohtani type of month in his prime. I mean, you can't take that away from him. And I also think it's cool to see the Rockies have, some of their young talent getting recognized at this level, because this is what we're paying attention to for the Rockies. Like, yeah, it's cool when we see Charlie Blackmon go out and hit some home runs, and even Chris Bryant when he's having, swinging the bat well. Like, it makes you feel a little better about that big contract. But really what we're keeping an eye on is guys like Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, Michael Toglia, the future of the Rockies. And Brenton Doyle is a pivotal piece, if not the pivotal piece, at least currently on the team for the Rockies, that is expected to be the future of this franchise.
100%. Franchise cornerstone. And ironically, like you said, winning the NL Player of the Month, thank God he wasn't in the AL, because the month that Bobby Witt Jr. had was insane. And those two, just putting those two back to back, I mean, I think Brenton Doyle's finally getting the national respect he deserves. Yeah. Because last year, obviously, he won a Gold Glove, but everybody's like, can he hit at the major league level? Now he's proving that he can hit at the major league level while still playing that incredible defense. And when you have a guy like Bobby Witt Jr., who's maybe a top 3 to 5 player in the MLB right now in terms of just overall play, but also who the national media talks about. You hear Bobby Witt Jr., you hear Shohei Ohtani, guys like that, and seeing him and Brenton Doyle and their numbers back to back. Yes, Bobby Witt Jr. had an absurd July, but Brenton Doyle had more home runs, he had more RBIs, so a few other things that just make his recognition just in the national media like super hype for us as a franchise cornerstone.
Well, and also I think you have to look at it this way too. Like, I love watching Michael Toglia play. Michael Toglia has been phenomenal since he came in, but he's kind of a one-trick pony at the moment. I know the Rockies are trying to mold him into a much deeper player, but he's a guy who hits with power. He's one of those guys that, like, if he's not hitting a home run, he's probably striking out or grounding out to shortstop. And so that's something he's got to improve. Brenton Doyle, though, he's a young player who can kind of do it all. And you touched on that defensively, but I even look offensively as well. Like, he's a guy who can go out and hit 11 home runs in a month, but then also get on base, and score runs, rack up the RBIs. I think he had like 50 RBIs or something like that in the month of July. I don't remember the exact number, but like, the dude can do it all. And when you look at position players, someone who's not just a designated hitter whose job is to come in and hit a home run or sit down on the bench, like I expect to see that in the future of the Rockies franchise. I expect to see guys that aren't just, specialists. Like we talk about that guy from the Olympics who's like the gymnast who just does that one thing. Like that's cool in some areas. I want to see, when you're building a franchise around a player, I want to see guys who can do everything. And so Brenton Doyle is that guy, and he is the first player to win the National League Player of the Month since C.J. Cron in 2021, August of 2021. Cron also hit 11 home runs in that month, but I would argue that Brenton Doyle is more of a complete package than Cron was for the Rockies in that time of his career.
100%. When you talk about five-tool players, there is no chinks in Brenton Doyle's armor now that he's hitting at a level he's hitting at. And I was looking up I wanted to see kind of the full scope, and he only had 2 stolen bases. And for as fast as he is, you see like what? But if you're hitting a double or a home run or a triple every time you go up, you're not going to have many chances to steal bases.
Yeah.
There wasn't many singles with a 1.194 OPS. There's not many singles in that month, so not many chances to steal bases.
That singles, that's weak stuff for Brenton Doyle. He's a double or beyond. I will say I saw that he was one hit, whether it be a single or a double or a home run or whatever it be. He was one hit away from the cycle 3 times in the month of July. So he had games at 3 different times in the month of July where he was just one enter whatever you want there, single, double, triple, home run away from hitting for the cycle. Like that is impressive. That I know that kind of gets overlooked because if you don't hit the cycle, you don't hit for the cycle. But like that's still, if you're saying, okay, yeah, you went 3 for 4 with a triple, a double, and a single, and you just happen to miss the home run, like that's still a pretty baller game. And that gets overlooked in those stats as well for Brenton Doyle. Yeah,
when you're joining guys like Troy Tulowitzki, Matt Holliday, Carlos Gonzalez, Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, those are, Player of the Month winners for the Rockies in the past, and that's high ground right there to be joining, especially as a Rockies fan. They have a much shorter history, if you will. There's not these 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old records, but Brenton Doyle, I honestly just hope that he continues this pace, because to be honest with you, last year I thought this was like a Nolan Jones. Like Nolan Jones was this guy, and Brenton Doyle was kind of that guy. Like, oh wow, he's really good defensively. I think at one point last year he's hitting 180 something, and which in the new MLB it's not necessarily terrible. It's not good overall, but like if you're hitting 220, 230, but doing other things and hitting for power, it's fine. See Michael Toglia.
Yeah,
but Brenton Doyle was like always that worry for me of, can he bring it around at the plate? He's so good defensively, you almost have to play him, especially at Coors Field with the big outfield. And now he's brought it around at the plate, and now you're looking at Nolan Jones, and you're like, is he, is his career fully derailed, or is it just a bad season? And you're hoping those two together in left field and in center field for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, that's a good pivot place, because I wanted to talk about Nolan Jones. He is currently kind of working to get healthy. He's been dealing with some back and knee injuries, specifically back injuries that have flared up. He missed 41 games to start the season, and then on July 12th, he went back onto rehab assignment after his back kind of flared up again. But it brings up the point that, he had such an amazing season last year. He was in the running for Rookie of the Year. He was Silver Slugger. Like, he was absolutely, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. Like, the guy went off in his rookie season. And with that comes big expectations for this current season. He hasn't been able to really work into those expectations. And I know injuries are injuries, and, that you can only do so much with that. But I think it puts a lot of pressure on him. And I actually was reading an article by Patrick Saunders with the Denver Post, who just came out a couple days ago. He was talking to Nolan Jones and to Bud Black about those expectations. And I wanted to read you guys what Bud Black was saying. So Bud Black, in response to this, was saying, success can put extra weight on a young player's shoulders. You're reading your name, you're seeing some of the things that you do statistically, and it just compounds itself. I think Jones just has to take a step back and go back to being who he is and letting his talents show. Just start playing a relaxed brand of baseball. So that's all fine and good. But when you get into a slump like this, especially injury related, that's so much easier said than done. And for Nolan Jones, you've got the entire weight of a franchise partially resting on your shoulders, the future of the franchise resting on your shoulders, and you only have 1 year of sample size to go off of and say, yeah, hey, I crushed it my rookie season, but I just haven't been able to find that swing again. I don't know what that looks like for Nolan Jones, and I don't know if he's going to be able to bounce back in the way that people think he is. I hope that he does, and I think players like Brenton Doyle are going to help him, could help him get back to that place. But there's a big question mark right now around Nolan Jones and what his future looks like for the Rockies.
100%. And I actually, I'll spin the zone this injury into a good thing, is if Nolan Jones, he's hitting 202 this year and 163 at bats, so not great. But if he was having this year throughout the entire year and healthy, that worries me more than him getting hurt. Like, him getting hurt is almost like, and that can be like a chicken or the egg. Is he playing bad because he was semi-hurt, or did he get hurt and now he just can't get back? But I see it as a positive that at least this season's coming where he's hurt now and he's doing great in, AAA, which I feel like the Rockies, I don't know if we're going to touch on this today, but I feel like they have a lot of dudes just raking in the minors, which is a good sign. But then they get to the pros and it's like, there's always it's a different level, obviously, but that's what the point of the minors is if you rake there, you're supposed to get promoted. Well, then you get promoted and you, for lack of a better term, suck. Where do you find that groove, and how long does it take to find that groove? But that's what I'm looking for from Nolan Jones. Is the fact that he's hurt makes me feel better about the lack of production this season, because obviously if you're hurt, you're not playing as much. But even when he's been up, it's like, okay, it kind of opens your mind to, has he been not 100%? Because we saw what he could be last year in 2023. So having that 2023 Nolan Jones mixed with a 2024 Brenton Doyle, and whoever they throw in right field, they could throw a 70-year-old Charlie Blackmon in right field, and that's still a plus outfield in the MLB. Yeah, no, I agree, and it brings me back to one of the things that I said on the trade deadline show, which is that the Rockies are in a place right now where I want to be seeing guys who are absolutely crushing it in the minors, getting reps at the big league level, even if it might cost you games now, so that you can get those kind of nervous jitters out of the way early. And then when it matters in 2 years, when you're hopefully making a run for the wild card, you've got, a handful of starts under your belt, or you've got a handful of at-bats under your belt, or whatever that looks like. For Nolan Jones, even though he had such a phenomenal year last year, he was still a rookie. Injuries can do a lot of funky things to you. I would argue that he's kind of in a place now where he needs to rebuild that confidence. And this is a perfect opportunity for them this year to take guys like Nolan Jones when he's healthy, obviously, but then young players as well and prospects, and bring them up to our level and say, okay, give them a pressure-free environment to go out and get those reps in, get the jitters out of the way. I mean, look at Jackson Holliday, Matt Holliday's son, who was such a big prospect for the Orioles, came up and sucked his first time he got called up, got sent back down, still was having some struggles when he got called back up. But now Jackson Holliday's playing well. He had a grand slam. He's had 3 multi-hit games, which is the most that he's had since being called up again. It takes a little bit to find that rhythm. And we already know Nolan Jones can be that guy. He just has to build some confidence again. And I know Bud Black is talking about him, needing to play a more relaxed brand of baseball. Well, this is the season to do it, because the Rockies don't have any pressure. You're not winning. You're not going to the playoffs this year. So play that relaxed baseball this year. Get the reps that you need in the minors, come up to the bigs again, and just get back out there. Don't have the expectations set super high, and just allow yourself to go get some reps. Yeah, well, and this speaks to, I'm sure you talked about it. I caught a little bit of the post-trade deadline show, but that's what speaks to even more of our frustration with the lack of moves made in the field. Yeah. And does it hurt to see some guys get traded like a Brendan Rodgers? Yes. But if that means Adael Amador is playing more in this stress-free, August, September, getting more reps at the major league level, that's what you need to build a better team. Yeah. And so I think that's where, the Rockies have a yearly frustration from the fan base of not trading the players that they should. But guys like Drew Romo are ready to be up here. Yeah. And they're in an awkward situation now where Jacob Stallings, for all lack of a better term, is playing good baseball. He's homered in 2 straight games, and every time he homers, I'm like, what a worthless home run. Like, that guy should be doing that for a contender for us to have more prospects. So I think that part is frustrating, and I really do hope that in the next month and a half or so, they do call up some guys, whether it's, I know in other sports, I don't know, like in the back end of baseball as well, but there's these injuries that happen so that people can play. And I wouldn't be surprised if, Elias Diaz has an injury, for the next 4 to 6 weeks or something like that.
Gets
now
that
he's not traded.
Rest series,
Exactly. So guys like Romo and Amador and these other guys that are potentially your future can play. Because to me, this season is already a loss from the standings column, and they're not making the playoffs. We know that. But it's really going to be a loss if we don't get to see a few more guys come up in the rest of 2024 and get a feel for the big leagues going into next year.
Yeah, I was always told, I had coaches that used to tell me, like, don't ever let your failures or your challenges go wasted. Don't ever let those things go unused. If you're struggling, whether it be as a player, as a franchise, make sure you get something out of that. And I got pretty frustrated on the last trade deadline talk show because I just felt like the Rockies wasted an opportunity not getting rid of at least one of their catchers to make room for Drew Romo. And I agree with you completely when I see guys, I even go as far as Cal Quantrill, who I enjoy watching as a pitcher sometimes. But like when he goes out and plays well or plays poorly, like to me, that's still like, it feels wasted because that's either value or lack of value that you're missing out on by not trading them for someone at the trade deadline. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And I want to see guys like Drew Romo getting their first looks at the big league level earlier than later, because this is when you have to do that. You're in a phase as your franchise of growth. And so make sure you're making the most out of those failures right now, because there isn't pressure for those young guys to come up and perform right away. You're not in a playoff window. So allow yourself to take some of those risks now and get that kind of get the ball rolling on that. So I'm excited to see if that stuff kind of starts to keep moving, because I agree. I have seen a lot of highlights of some of these young guys just absolutely crushing the baseball and throwing good outings.
Chase Dollander was great yesterday.
He was.
I am getting very excited for that.
Yeah, and I think the more consistency we see out of young guys, the better it is to see that. And Nolan Jones too, who has been crushing the baseball in AAA. It makes you more excited to see them make that transition into the big leagues. But I do think there is a big mental piece to all of this. And speaking of the mental side of really anything we do, but especially baseball, we got to mention our friends and partners over at UC Health. UC Health knows how important mental health is and encourages Coloradans to live their healthiest lives through statewide initiatives that include taking care of your mental health. They want you to live like there is a tomorrow. And I always say, for us as Rocky fans, we are living for tomorrow. That is our entire future. So in the theme of living for tomorrow, I wanted to share a story of a really cool situation that happened in the end with a patient going through UC Health. David Schlicht was a former Olympic hopeful from Colorado whose life kind of took a turn after he lost his leg, unfortunately, in a ski training accident. But the positive side to this story is, with the help of UC Health doctors, David was able to kind of get back to doing what he does best after he went through an amputation, and that is being outdoors and being active. And you always think of, if someone loses their leg or loses an arm, it feels like you're never going to be able to get back to doing what you enjoy doing. But UC Health was able to really get with David and help him get back to doing what he loves to do the most, and doing it in a really mentally strong and positive way. And David, has admitted that there was a lot of struggles, but he says that overall losing his leg was a really positive thing, because now he gets to show people what they can do, even with a prosthetic leg. And it's given him a lot more purpose in life and has helped him become more confident in life too. So, moral of the story, take care of your mental health as well as your physical health, and UC Health is the place to do to help you get into that state of mind. If you want to learn more about David's story and see more inspiring patient stories from UC Health, you can head over to uchealth.org/tomorrow to learn what it means to live like there is a tomorrow. And also, speaking of living like there is a tomorrow, you can also live like there's a today. And the best way to do that is with our friends at Toyota, because they have a dope lineup of vehicles. Spencer, I know you got a new Toyota. Is that correct?
I am rolling in a new 2024 Tundra as of last
So
Wednesday.
you stepped up to the big time. You got the tank rolling around.
I did, and it's the biggest car I've ever owned, and it's a little scary driving it right now. I have to park in very certain scenarios, but also like my Tacoma, which I loved, didn't necessarily want to get rid of it. My son's car seat kind of barely fits in that back seat, so having people sit in the front, they had their knees kind of eating the dashboard. So now there's a lot more room. And with my job and with working tailgates and stuff like that, it was nice to have a bigger truck. And the guys at Toyota were incredible. I traded in 2 of my old cars, got a new one. I actually leased this Toyota, so I'm excited to see like what that's about. I've heard it's a good thing. I've heard it's a bad thing. So we'll find out. But I'm really excited to be in my new Tundra. It's exactly what I wanted in a car. Like with the Tacoma, I actually had to buy the white one because my wife couldn't drive the stick shift black one that I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
So now I've got the black on black Tundra that I wanted, and I'm excited to take it out, take it to the mountains, I got a wedding this weekend, so I'm going to be driving up in the mountains, going to take it up there, and it's got a little more power than my
Yeah,
Tacoma
you're going to
too.
be looking like a bouncer rolling up to places with the blacked out Tundra. And that's pretty
it's
sweet.
sweet.
That is good. Yeah, I was going to say, and that's the beauty of Toyota is they've got so many options. If the Tacoma isn't fitting your lifestyle for whatever reason, maybe you're just not, getting out as much as you thought you were. Like you said, the car seat isn't working. Well, go pick up a Tundra or a RAV4. So the RAV4 is personally my favorite because I'm kind of in the same boat. I think the Tundra might be a little too big for me, but the RAV4 is a perfect SUV. You can still go camping with it, bring it out into the off-road world. But also you can put a car seat in the back and, bring a bunch of friends around and, go out and carpool with some friends downtown. Like it's a really good, reliable car. So whatever your needs are, Toyota's got you covered. And make sure you get out and visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. They've got AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. And as always, Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR and also of the Rockies. So I wanted to pivot here a little bit, talking about some national headlines, because I don't know what like sports shows you watch or listen to, in your free time when you're not listening to the DNVR Rockies show all week long on repeat. But Colin Cowherd had some interesting comments. He's talking about, the NFL, obviously training camps going on, the Broncos being out there getting in the thick of it. But he was talking about how the NFL is making some adjustments with the whole new kickoff rule and all that kind of thing. And he said this quote, which I thought was really interesting. He said, quote, "The NFL is not perfect, but they're always willing, unlike baseball, to change things." And that made me hesitate for a moment because I started thinking I feel like Major League Baseball has actually changed a lot of things since, I don't know, at least the last few years. I don't really know what the context he was trying to get at there, but I wanted to run this list out there of the things that Major League Baseball has changed since 2019. So this is 5 years ago. Over the last 5 years, Major League Baseball has had a 3-batter minimum for pitchers. They've added a 3rd wild card spot in the playoffs. Position player limitations, extra inning runner starting on second base, shift restrictions, universal DH. They've added bigger bases, balanced schedule, pickoff rule changes, mound visit rule, and the dreaded pitch clock. I don't really know what Colin Cowherd was getting at there. And maybe, do I ever really know what Colin Cowherd is getting at?
Does anyone?
Does anyone know what Colin Cowherd is getting at? But it's one of those things where you say it and I'm like, did a producer write that for you and you just didn't really double check it? But I feel like I would make the argument that Major League Baseball has made more changes than the NFL, at least from a playing standpoint.
I would argue that, to piggyback on that the Major League Baseball made the biggest changes to any professional sport in the last decade, maybe longer, with the pitch clock and everything that they changed going into this year. The amount it directly, because there's always changes in every league and you want this and you want that, but there's not a lot of it that directly affects the gameplay and the product that's on the field. It could, but it doesn't necessarily lead to that. The pitch clock and what it's done to baseball has a direct correlation to how long these games are taking, the speed of the game, the difference in product on the field. And I would argue that's the biggest change that's been made to major sports in a long time, where games are not taking 4 hours. They're taking, 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I don't know the exact average time right now, but they go by a lot quicker. And the 3 batter minimum, you're not having, what was the old Dodgers? Was it Dodgers or Giants? Maybe it was Bochy that would come out lefty, come out next batter righty.
Actually, it's both. Yeah.
And those guys, there's none of that anymore. And so it's directly affected the product on the field in my mind, a positive manner. I'm still a little old school where personally, I don't care how long a game takes. I'm there to enjoy the game, and I think it's more fun. But it also hasn't been I haven't felt like it was so sped up that I'm annoyed by
not getting your money's worth.
Exactly.
It's been an hour and a half. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I'm there watching the game. I'm enjoying it. I know the new rules well enough to where, it doesn't bother me. I am a little more old school where I don't care, but I'm also not anti changing, making a pitch clock and making these pitchers are insane, dude. And they're annoying and they do all these crazy things. And I think it's kind of reset everybody to get out of these habits where they're, touching their, and their hat and they're this 42 times before they throw a ball.
Yeah. And that is totally a thing. I was one of the rare pitchers that I was like the Max Scherzer when I was pitching, where I'm like, get me the ball back and I'm getting right back on the mound and I want to throw before the batter's even set. So the pitch clock would have been great for me when I was playing, but I could totally see I played with so many guys who would have hated the pitch clock because they were the get the ball back, do 2 laps around the mound, fill up on the rosin bag 50 times, you're getting a cup of sunflower seeds in your mouth in between every pitch, and then take the bump to go throw again. And it's dude, come on. What are we doing here? Or even the batter, taking a step out and taking 50 practice swings. I remember Matt Holliday even, he would take 4 practice swings full. I mean, he was like Russell Wilson out there doing reps before a game in between every single pitch. And eventually I was like, come on, bud. Let's get back in the batter's box.
Yep.
So I'm all for it too. And not to get back into all this, because we talked about it a lot last year. I remember jumping on the show and talking about the pitch clock and all these new rules. But it just made me laugh a little bit when Coward goes out and says, baseball doesn't change. Baseball is changing and is changing in drastic ways. I will say, in defense of Colin Coward, having hosted even just a 1-hour show by myself, that's insanity what he does. What is it, 4 hours that he's on the air pretty much by himself? I know he gets he has guests and does interactive stuff, but whenever you have had to talk by yourself and entertain someone for hours on end, that's it's a whole nother level of media.
100%. I started my own podcast 2019, 2020, after my brother and I were doing one before we were part of, ALLCITY and DNVR. We were doing just a general Denver sports podcast, and we'd have an hour a week, and it almost felt like sometimes it was hard to talk about that much, have an hour. And then I started my own because I was like, I want to just talk. I feel like I can do this. The first one I'm just sitting in my living room recording my own stuff, and I was like, this is impossible.
Yeah.
I was like, I need way more practice. I need to prepare way more for this show. I need a million more bullet points.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
I literally, my first rundown was a couple bullet points, and it was just okay, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this. And then I get through I get through pretty much 3/4 of my rundown. I look at the time and it's 10:24. And I'm holy shit, I have another 36 minutes left in this show. I'm frantically searching things to talk about. And yeah, it's brutal. It adds up really quick. And, we appreciate our super producers, Kale here in the house with us today, for jumping on and talking with us when we're by ourselves. But also you're still running the show by yourself pretty much. So I give Colin Coward, although I disagree with 99.9% of the things that he says, I give him credit for at least, just showing up 5 days a week to do a 4-hour solo show.
No doubt. Did you mention I'm sure you did, in the rundown of changes Major League Baseball's made, the DH, the universal DH, that in itself was, as a Rockies fan, is incredible. Getting 9 actual batters at Coors Field.
And not having, although I will say that was one of the few changes that I actually kind of hated at first, because I grew up in a time, my family's from the Bay Area. I watched a ton of Giants games growing up, and seeing Madison Bumgarner come up to the plate for the Giants when there was like a chance that he could hit a ball 500 feet as a pitcher was electric. Like absolutely electric to see a pitcher who maybe would like strike out 10 times in a row and then just send one to the moon. The like Bartolo Colon type of situations.
Yeah. Well, Kyle Freeland's been a good hitter in his day. And then German Marquez, I believe, won a Silver Slugger Award. Hit a home run like so far at Coors Field. Like I guess my excitement for it was the more runs for the Rockies. And I'd like to see
it's better for
numbers.
Baseball.
But the thing that drove me crazy is I'm actually on your side of I actually enjoyed pitchers hitting.
Yeah.
Because I think it makes more, them getting hurt running the bases and shit like that, like Freeland earlier this year, like that sets me off. Like, but you can't ever control injuries.
Sure.
But I think what made me crazy about it is the fact that there's two separate leagues playing two different brands of baseball.
Correct.
And that'd be like in the NFL, in the AFC, you have to throw the ball 42 times a game. Yeah. And in the NFC, you have to run it 42 times. Like,
or like having the new kickoff rules for one, conference versus the other.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, that's
the part that drove me crazy is the fact that one league of baseball was playing two entirely different games. Like, some managers may be good at managing an AL team. Some managers were better at managing an NL team with the roster. Like, and AL versus AL, you're doing like 2 or 3 lineup changes just going to your bullpen. NL, it's like, where are we moving the pitcher to? Where are we, all that strategy that came into it. Just like, I was like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I would have been fine them going to pitchers hitting all around baseball, but then it also brings down the product of the actual pitching, and then it brings down one of the hitters. So I think it was a good compromise, but I do agree with you that I just think that there needs to be some uniformity. And the schedule. The schedule is fucking awesome. Yeah. The fact that, granted in the Rockies division, they're not playing the Dodgers a million times a year is great.
Love that.
But the fact that you get to see, as a professional team, you get to see your Red Sox or your Yankees or your Cubs, whoever it is, if you're a fan in a different city, every 2 years at your home ballpark or wherever you go to watch games. It was a genius change.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And like now you're like, oh, we get to see the Red Sox in 2030 again. No, like they came here this year, they'll be back in 2026, and the Rockies will go to Fenway next year. It's like I'm like very OCD, and I like the consistency of the schedule and knowing when you're going to play where and who you're going to play. And I enjoy that part of it.
No, that's fair. I totally agree. And I also just feel like baseball is set up as a sport to change because you have so many levels of the minor league, where you can implement changes at like the lower levels, and you have 162 games. You have such a large sample size. Like in the NFL, it's so hard to change things because you're like, well, we've got 1 game per week, for each team, and maybe 2, when you get the Thursday night football schedule. But like, your sample size is so small. You don't have a lot of smaller leagues below you. Like, you don't have all these minor league levels that you can say, we're going to go try this out, like in the XFL, and, hope it works there and see, like Major League Baseball is set up to change. It is set up as a way that you can test things out. And we know all the baseball analysts and data, statistics gurus out there love all of that because that's how you can figure out, is this change? Like the pitch clock, you can implement that at the minor league levels. We saw it in the Spokane Indians when I was covering the Spokane Indians before I came here. I saw that there before it was in Major League Baseball. And so to see that in a large sample size in the minor leagues first, and to get a feeling of like, oh, hey, especially for minor league games, like these games are going from like 3-hour long games to like 2.5 hour games. Like that's clutch, especially at the minor league level where you're not as invested in the game. It's more about like the fan experience and stuff. Like that's huge. So I think, the Major League Baseball is right where they're at. Maybe we'll start having problems if they start using robo-umps, but that's a totally different conversation to get into at a different time.
One last change that I enjoy, I want to get your take on, is the added playoff team. I am all for adding playoff teams to most leagues. Like, I think it makes it so much more fun for a team that's maybe ready to contend, and they are a 500-ish baseball team. I don't know what, I think the AL or the NL wildcard right now, 60-55 is the last spot. So you're about a 500 baseball team.
Yeah.
And a team that's ready to contend, like hopefully the Rockies in maybe 2025, probably more 2026, get that chance to play in that wild card game that brings so much excitement. It's a 1-game thing. And yes, people have been like, well, what's the point of playing one more game? You've played 162. it's the atmosphere and the complete difference of what that brings. I thought was a great change too. And people are like, oh, less teams in the playoffs. It's like you want 4 and 4 on each side and just have 2 rounds of the playoffs and then the World Series and then it's over. Like I love the addition of the extra wild card team and getting more teams in. If you still have to win the games. Yeah. Like it's just, to me, it's saltiness from like the Dodgers who win 120 games a year and
they don't want to be knocked out by
they don't want to be knocked out by a team that's got really hot and ended up 83 and 79, but is cooked like the Diamondbacks last year, just cooked at the end of the year and made the World Series. That makes sports fun.
I compare it to one of the greatest sporting tournaments in the history of our sports world, the NCAA tournament for men and women's college basketball. Because you get teams like Oral Roberts that are pretty much a nobody, and I'm speaking basketball wise here, that end up beating a 1 seed, and it is the greatest thing in the world to watch, unless your team is the 1 seed.
Unless you're a Purdue fan.
Yeah, unless you're a Virginia or Purdue fan, it's amazing when you see those 16 seeds beating the 1 seed. For baseball, I think there's a similar feeling to that, where, like if you see like the Chicago Cubs this year sneak into a wild card spot and Chicago gets to, let's say, host a wild card game, that's going to be incredible for the city of Chicago. Like I know our buddies over at CHGO would be having a ball with that. Unfortunately, the Rockies aren't going to have that opportunity this year, but in a couple of years, maybe that first step in the right direction where you start to see some of these young guys really getting into their own as a unit is going to be that like extra wild card spot. Like maybe that is where the Rockies get their entrance into the playoffs. We saw that with Rocktober in 2018, was that? 2018 when the Rockies? Yeah. So like where the Rockies got to get into that wild card game, I think that is a beauty. If you can expand baseball's postseason as much as possible, why not? Because it gives teams like the Rockies, who can't really compete financially and physically with teams like the Dodgers in the long term, a chance to say, hey, well, maybe we get to play them in a best of 5 or best of 7 series if we can get through a wild card game here. And we all know what can happen in baseball when you have a 1-game winner take all, situation. So I'm all for it. Like I love that change. I think that's a lot of fun. But speaking of change, it's awesome that we get to announce, and get back involved with one of our favorite partners over at Breck Distillery. Breckenridge Bourbon Whiskey is the official bourbon and vodka of the Denver Broncos, who are in training camp right now, and they are getting ready for a exciting season. A lot of things to look forward to for the Broncos. But you got to look for their 2024 Broncos Bourbon Blends to hit the shelf starting the week of August 12th. So that's coming up here in just a few days. That's across all Colorado retailers. The Breckenridge Distillery is the world's highest distillery, founded in 2008. They are the most widely known for their blended bourbon whiskey, a high rye mash, American-style whiskey. Breckenridge Bourbon is one of the most highly awarded craft bourbons in the U.S. The weather isn't really getting cool yet. Like we're still in the thick of summer, but like as we start getting towards fall, football season starts to really ramp up. We're starting to see the Broncos in their preseason, their training camps. And I know that you do a lot of work with ALLCITY and DNVR on like the event management side, and we're starting to get ready for tailgate season coming up. And how cool is it, and how fun is it to see Breck Distillery showing up at the DNVR tailgates for Broncos season? Like that is one of the best combinations that we have in this entire company, to see those, a Breck Distillery bottle sitting on the table as Lindsay Spano's out pouring shots for us all for the DNVR tailgates.
I will say I work tailgates, but right after about the first hour and a half, I feel like everybody's there, checked in. I do make my way over to the Breck Distillery table. The shot ski's ready for me at all times.
I cannot wait.
I actually have, I got it as a gift from my brother for Christmas last year, but I still have the Breck Powder Hound whiskey at my house, and I've only tried it. Yeah. I've only had like a few glasses here and there, but I'm a very like seasonal drinker. So right now it's more, beer, light beer, maybe some seltzers, things like that. But then once it gets into winter and football season, I'm pretty much strictly a vodka and whiskey guy.
Oh, yeah.
And Breck has both of those. And their whiskeys are the ones that always get all the love, but their vodka is low key really good. And they have an espresso vodka that goes great with like a coffee for in the mornings. Like tailgate season means Breck Distillery to me.
What time is it right now? 10:39 a.m. Is
Can we
that
start?
a little too early for that? I mean, come on. That's you're getting me a little excited over here. I agree with you though. The seasonal beverage is definitely bourbon for me in the winter, fall. Right when that tailgate season comes around, we're getting the Shotskis going. And I know we got a lot of that right around the corner. But speaking of right around the corner, enter to win 2 tickets to Denver Broncos games in the Breckenridge Bourbon Whiskey Suite. Share how you celebrate the Broncos by posting your photos to social media using hashtag Broncos Bourbon. Also use code DNVR at checkout for free shipping on all of our orders over $99. Learn more at BreckenridgeDistillery.com. Well, another one of our great sponsors. They've been with us for a long time, and we just love our friends over at Bet365. Over at Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe every sport should be absolutely epic. Right now, new customers can choose between 2 offers when they open an account at Bet365. Use code DNVR365 to sign up, deposit $10, and choose between either a bet and get offer by placing a bet of $5 or more and getting $150 in bonus bets, or first bet safety net by placing a bet of up to $1,000. And if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And of course, we've got to mention our favorite MLB early payout offer. With the MLB early payout offer over at Bet365, you're a winner if your team goes 5 runs ahead with an instant payout. Parlay and same game parlay selections are going to be marked as winners. Here at Bet365, we don't do ordinary. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants to help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Well, I wanted to. We were talking about some of the weird stuff, in the weird rule changes and some of the rule changes that we like. But I made a post on DNVR Rockies Twitter because the Rockies yesterday faced a unique pitcher that we don't see a lot of anymore in Major League Baseball. The Rockies faced right-handed pitcher for the San Diego Padres, Matt Waldron, who throws a knuckleball. And I posed the question, what is harder to hit? A knuckleball, a good knuckleballer, or a really nasty submarine thrower? And I've faced both, so I have my opinion on that. But from your perspective, Spencer, what do you think is more challenging to hit, a good knuckleball or a dude who throws it basically from the dirt?
I would venture to say, like, if I had to guess, it would be the knuckleballer for me. So back in when I played a lot of baseball, which was high school before I started fully getting into golf, I actually pitched at a high school level in summer ball, and I couldn't throw hard enough to throw it overhand. So I actually pitched submarine because I could get I could only probably throw maybe 70, 75, and I was in that same summer league, I was facing Kyle Freeland, who's shattering all of our wood bats, making us go back to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy more wood bats.
Nice.
But I couldn't throw it fast enough to be and I wanted to be a pitcher. I played a little second base. I caught a lot. That's what I did from when I was a kid until middle of high school. But I wanted to pitch, and I was like, all right, summer ball. My coach is like, cool, like, what do you got? And I just started throwing it submarine. And my fastball, quote, slow ball essentially, moved so much because I was so underneath it. It was like a left-hander's slider, basically. Yeah. And so I could get a lot of movement on that, but I'll be the first one to tell you, I still got tagged pretty hard in certain games. So my buddy that I would always play catch with, his name was Cameron, him and his dad was our pitching coach, threw a mean knuckleball. And so he would always fuck with me warming up, because he would just throw this nasty knuckleball at me, and it would dive on the ground. It would, when I started catching for him, I got better at catching it, but I think it's personally a much harder pitch to hit because you don't know where it's going. Yeah.
Same with the catcher too. You have no idea if you're going to catch it or not.
Back in the Wakefield days when Veritek would have that glove that was basically just like a first baseman's glove.
The floppy mitt.
Exactly. So I would say, I don't know what the results in the poll were, but personally, a really good knuckleball is harder than a submarine guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. A really good knuckleball, because here's the difference though. I think so many guys, and you just brought it up, so many guys just warming up playing catch in the outfield, try out throwing knuckleballs. And, you know, every once in a while you'll get a nasty knuckleball where you're like, oh, damn.
I can do this.
Yeah, like I'm the next Tim Wakefield. But like go into a game, it's so hard to actually get that to work. And that's why we don't see it as much anymore. And it's hard because it's the change in like speed. So many guys like do the shot put knuckleball. And if you try to really like get full extension and actually get the good release point on your knuckleball, it tends to not do what you want it to do. But when you're shot putting your knuckleball, it kind of limits your fastball because then guys can read your pitches a little bit better. Like, so it's really hard to be a good knuckleballer. Matt Waldron, you know, is a good knuckleballer. But I would agree with you. Like, if you're a good submarine thrower, like, yes, that can be really effective. But if you have like an off day and your ball is kind of rising a little bit, or you float, you know, some of your off speed pitches or whatever, like dudes are teeing off because you're getting that ball going straight into basically the power zone for most hitters. Whereas with a knuckleball, like you literally just have to get lucky. You're hitting a ball that's moving like a beach ball, but is the size of an apple, you know, and it can be impossible to hit and to catch. So I always think that's fascinating because like you don't see knuckleballers anymore. I mean, you think of guys like Raleigh Fingers back in the day who could just like chuck knuckleballs, you know, pretty much as his every single pitch. Like, I don't think there's a single guy out there that we're maybe ever going to see again that will solely throw a knuckleball and maybe like a slow fastball or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's what was impressive about Waldron yesterday is the fact that he's throwing the knuckleball, but then he's also throwing from a lower arm angle.
Yeah.
And then he's also I think some of his fastballs were 89, 90. So, like, it's a very interesting pitch mix of where it's almost like, hey, you throw the fastball. I'm not sure if he was throwing a slider or some sort of curveball or changeup.
Yeah, he had a slider.
He had a kind of a wild pitch mix, and then coming from a different angle, it must be like it's almost like a throwaway day for your team. Like he's going to get hit sometimes, but it's like, okay, we've scouted this whole thing, and then your entire scouting report changes for one game. And in baseball, it's like, you know, are we really going to go this hard to try to hit a guy that throws this a decent fastball and then also a knuckleball, and then also it's coming from you're tilting your head because it's coming from lower at the ground.
Yeah, I just think too, like he's one of those guys that you kind of write off as like he's either going to be totally money and strike out every single batter, or he's going to not be able to find the strike zone or get shelled, and you know, and it's going to be a wash game for the Padres. But you think of that in offensively, like again, like I bring up like Michael Toglia, and you know, it's like he's a guy who can either hit a home run or he strikes out, you know, or grounds out. Like, and that's something that he's aware of and he's working on. But I just also think like we see that in pitching too. Guys that can have really stellar outings or just not find the strike zone. Matt Waldron is going to be that guy. And so it was kind of fun to see him pitch against the Rockies, although he ended up getting a pretty good outing, and the Rockies ended up losing that series to the Padres. I will say, on a good note, though, speaking of pitching, transitioning back to the Rockies, Tanner Gordon had pretty much his first career solid start. It was only his fourth start overall. 6 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 1 strikeout. Rockies ended up losing that game via the bullpen, which is very unfortunate.
How many times have you said that in your short time of being a DNVR Rockies podcaster?
Dude, don't.
You can probably just like record yourself saying the Rockies lost that game due to the bullpen, and just like have
it was good until the 7th
as
inning.
A button.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We're gonna get that on automation. Yeah, but good to see Tanner Gordon getting really his first career solid start.
Yeah,
and you know, I like to see that from some of the younger, or at least more rookie type of guys that are coming into the Rockies organization for a earlier opportunity. I mean, only his 4th overall start. So, I mean, it's a good sight for him. And to see him starting to build some confidence, even though the bullpen didn't really help him out. Bud Black did say that we're going to start to see him in the starting rotation more in Denver, which we haven't seen yet. So, you know, we're starting to see some guys. You talk about Chase Dolliner, who's, you know, getting some good outings in the minors. Like, I really am impressed by some of these young arms that are starting to pitch well for the Rockies.
Yeah, well, in that game, I'm going to blame the scorekeeper for that game because it's a trickle down effect from the scorekeeper. That should have been an error on McMahon, in my personal opinion. If that's an error on McMahon, then Gordon gets to come out for another inning we don't allow a run, and he doesn't allow a run. He continues on, and then that game stays closer longer, and the Rockies have a better chance to win it. So I'm blaming the scorekeeper on and not letting Gordon go. I mean, the toughest part about watching baseball this late in the year when your team is out of it is the fact that you maybe can't. There's no reason to push guys, and there's no reason to push a potential starter into your future. You know, the Rockies right now have two of their should be top 3 or 4 starters that are out, or, you know, Herman came back and Senzatel's still out, but 2 of their top 4 starters right now are out with Tommy John, or have, you know, rehabbing from Tommy John, trying to get back. And so when you're at this point in the season, you want to see guys play, but with pitching, it's a different aspect of, okay, well, yeah, we want to see him pitch, but, oh, they went 5 innings of 1-run ball. Do we want to keep him going? Are we going to ruin him for next year? Are we going to ruin his arm if we let him keep going? But as a fan, you're like, well, let the kid keep going. Let him get his first major league win. Sure. You know, so it's a very fine line to toe. And, you know, I don't know. We've never really talked off camera or on camera about your feelings about Bud Black, but I am actually in Bud Black's corner, and I am too. And I've defended him. Like, when you have shit players and you have a shit part of your roster, like the bullpen is, what are you going to do? You have to go to somebody. Yeah. And if every one of them is going to give up runs, there's nothing you can do there.
Yep.
And maybe I'm too much of a Bud Black apologist, and I'll admit that. But when you don't have a good quarterback, your football team's not good. That's just a matter of fact. And when you don't have everything going in baseball, whether your pitching's really good, but you can't hit. There's teams losing games 1-0. There's guys that have lost almost a no-hitter because their team can't score. So you have to have everything going to win games. But it is good to see guys like Tanner Gordon, and hopefully we get some more Marquez starts the rest of this year. Maybe a Senzatella start here or there, and maybe just maybe a Chase Dollander start, or one of their guys down in AAA, AA. Come up, because that's the thing as an organization where we've talked about it, and just moving on into the rest of this year, this is where you get to see if guys can stick at the major league level. Yeah. There's no point in not letting them try to stick this year, and then next year you're still trying to figure out who your guys are. Yep. This is the rest of this year, figure out who some of your guys are. You've got Doyle, you've got Tovar, you've got Tolia, but figure out some more of these guys and figure out if they can play at the major league level. And even if they get an opportunity and they don't do as well as you had hoped, they've got major league experience going next year into spring training, and then maybe the guys like the Stallings, the Diaz, the Brendan Rodgers are more expendable, but also you realize that they're not part of your entire future. Yeah. And you get to see guys that are part of the future start from opening day, and then you learn how to win with those guys. There's steps to this, and right now they're trying to take that first step. They're being forced into it with some injuries, but they need to fully take that first step. They need to jump in the pool, let these young guys play, and see what you got in them for the rest of the year.
Well, I definitely want to follow up to that, because I have some big thoughts and opinions on my experience, being the Rockies being my adopted team, and kind of the roller coaster of a ride that it is to be a Rockies fan. But first, want to give a shout out to our good friends over at Chinook Seedery. They are one of my favorite personal partners, because I love a good sunflower seed, and with Chinook Seedery, they're not just a good tasting sunflower seed. They're effective. That's one of the best way of putting it. They're efficient as a sunflower seed. They don't leave all that sandpaper kind of texture in your mouth, the salt burn that you get, the leftover aftertaste that you get from chewing traditional seeds. It's really smooth, unique flavors, and they've got a good lineup too. They've got original lemon pepper, jalapeno ranch, Parmesan and pepper, cinnamon toast, dill pickle, hatch chili, smokehouse barbecue. They've got so many different flavors. So get a sampler pack, try all 8 of those flavors. They are the largest seeds on the market. Head over to Chinook Seedery and use code ROCKIES for 20% off your order. They are the best seeds ever. And also, on a different note, if you're like me, you're always looking to get ahead with your money. That's why we at DNVR recommend getting involved with Premier Members Credit Union. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado. With PMCU, you get local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like a reverse tier money market. And I always say one of the best things about like Todd Helton is that he spent his entire career here in Colorado. Well, why not put your money here in Colorado with PMCU? They've got so many different amazing ways to help achieve your goals. Whatever your goals might be, they can help you with that. PMCU is all about creating a better banking experience for their community. So why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com to learn more. All right, going back to what I was just talking about with Spencer about this roller coaster of a ride that it is to be a Rockies fan. I will say that when I started here, and I've been a Rockies fan since college. I moved to Colorado in 2016, end of 2015, and so I've had a little bit of time, being involved with the Colorado Rockies. But since working specifically with the Rockies started my time by winning 2 series against the Giants, the Red Sox. They had a 12-inning walk-off Ezekiel Tovar, game winner, a 20-7 win over the Red Sox. They had that whole scuffle thing with Cal Quantrill, Reese McGuire, and the Red Sox. Then we were riding high going into the trade deadline. They lost 6 games in a row. They had a anticlimactic trade deadline, some poor pitching. I'm starting to understand what Rockies fans who have grown up with the team have been saying when they're like, this is just, it's insane sometimes. It's like going whitewater rafting. And every once in a while, you're up with your head up, like, hey, we're living the dream. It's beautiful. I'm in the water. And the next thing you know, you hit a rock, you're dunked completely upside down underwater. You're, coming up gasping for air. That's what it's like to be a Rockies fan. I'm starting to really get an understanding of that.
Yeah, you had a great start, to be honest. I mean, I think that part of it is what the Red Sox series was such a fun time.
It was. It was a blast.
Honestly, I was looking to go to another game. I went to a Red Sox game, but I was looking to go to another one, and I saw that wasn't until like now when they're home. So I knew that was a long road trip, and I knew it was probably California, and I knew it was going to be rough, and it was. But honestly, like for me, them just winning a game is like I like and I'm in a better mood after that. So like it's few and far between. But like when they beat the Angels 2 out of 3, I was like, all right, and then they won the Padres game, the first Padres game, and I was like, cool, like
in a good game too.
That's enough for me right now. Obviously, I hope we have greater aspirations in the future, and there's a playoff team at 20th and Blake again, because this city is very bandwagony when it comes to the Rockies. It's not like the Broncos where like no matter, they could be 1-17 and there's people like fighting that they're great or that they're going to be great again or 3 Super Bowls, whatever they want to say. But the Rockies are very bandwagony, but I will say a good Rockies team gets this city just about as hype as any team there is in this city. So I hope we have greater aspirations going forward, but it is a roller coaster ride, and I've really conditioned myself to watch. I watch almost every game if I can. And if they lose, I expect it, and I do bet on it sometimes. I bet on them to lose because it makes me feel a little better.
Hey, gotta make money off of the challenges.
Yeah, exactly. But if they win, I'm like ecstatic if I'm just winning one baseball game, which if you're a baseball fan of a good team, it's not. You got to win, 6, 7, 8 in a row. But I knew that West Coast road trip was going to be a rough one.
It is. And also, like, it was a reality check for me. I mean, like I'm saying, I felt like I was coming off those first series, like, dude, are we maybe making a wild card spot this year? And it's like, okay, relax a little bit. But I think I've been spoiled too, because since I moved to Colorado, Marissa and I moved into Denver, and she's from Colorado, but we moved to Denver the year that the Avs won the Stanley Cup. And I didn't, I grew up in Seattle, so we got the Kraken the year that we left. So I didn't have an NHL team. So I moved to Colorado, immediately became an Avalanche fan, and they win the Stanley Cup. The Sonics were gone when I was in Seattle when I was a kid. So I didn't have an NBA team either, truly, when I was growing up. The next year that I'm a Nuggets fan, they win the NBA Finals, the NBA Championship. And so I'm like, I've been super spoiled since I came here. And like I said, the Rockies are my adopted team. But I think it was so easy for me those first couple games to be like, oh my God, like this is amazing, And to be fair, baseball is the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. You could have a team like the Dodgers that on paper is the best team in all baseball, but then they're in a slump right now, and that NL West is heating up. We're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow on our show about how the National League West is getting a little interesting, but it is a wild time to be a Rockies fan. So I am so pumped to be on board. I know it's not where we want to be right now, but you're in a place where there's direction for the franchise, and that is all that matters. And that's where we're hoping to continue to move forward to. We're looking at a lot of the young players, and just we're excited about the future of the Rockies. So I'm pumped to be along for this ride with you guys. And I've got a lot of ground to catch up on since I'm not originally from Colorado, but I will say I'm bought in. I'm bought in on the Rocktober. Whenever it comes up.
I love that.
We're here.
We'll be back.
We'll be back.
It'll be back. It may be a couple years, but we'll be back.
Well, speaking of being back, that's going to do it for us. But I'm doing 4 shows this week because I missed the Friday show. I was out of town in Seattle visiting some family. So tomorrow we've got a show at 10 a.m. And then Wednesday, 10 a.m., and then Friday, 10 a.m. The Rockies do go back to playing home baseball against the Mets starting tomorrow. They've got an off day today, thank the Lord. And so we've got a lot of content coming up for you guys this week. So as always, thank you guys for tuning in, hanging out with us. My name's Christian Saez, on Twitter at CJJ Saez. Where are the folks going to find you, Spencer?
On the X, the Twitter at Big Drive Spence.
Big Drive Spence it is. Kale, our super producer, Kale. I know he's not like big into the socials anymore just because social media is changing, but Kale, we always appreciate your time. Where are the fans going to find you?
I guess Blue Eyes with a Backpack on Instagram is probably the best place to find my photography.
Blue Eyes with a Backpack, him and his pup always going out and doing cool things. We love having you guys hanging out with us on the show. We hope to see you more tomorrow at 10 a.m. And if not, we'll see you next time. Have a good one, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.